Today's movie is the brilliant 2006 crime thriller, Inside Man. A major bank in New York is suddenly taken over by armed robbers. Within minutes, police surround the building from all sides. But in the end, the robbers disappear without taking a single dollar from the bank. On one side is the mastermind behind this impossible heist. On the other is a detective willing to risk everything to outsmart him. This film tells the story of an intense mind game between these two men. Without wasting time, let's get into the story.
Pay strict attention to what I say because I choose my words carefully and I never repeat myself.
The movie begins in a dark and narrow room. Inside, a man sits trapped within four walls, answering a series of questions. He introduces himself as Dalton Russell. When asked where he is, Dalton says it is not technically a prison, but it feels like one. He then says he committed the perfect bank robbery just a few days ago. When asked why he did it, Dalton says he wanted money and also wanted to prove his intelligence. But one question still remains. How? Dalton has never been caught. Not only that, not a single dollar was officially stolen from the bank. And yet, millions disappeared that day. So how did Dalton pull off such a massive robbery without stealing a single dollar? To find that answer, the story goes back a few days. It is a busy morning in Manhattan, New York. A minivan moves steadily toward its destination. Inside are Dalton and his crew, all dressed as painters. A short while later, the van stops right in front of Manhattan Trust Bank. Dalton enters the bank alone. As he walks toward the center, he pulls out a flashlight fitted with infrared lights. These lights are invisible to human eyes, but they completely disable the bank's security cameras. Once the cameras are blinded, the rest of Dalton's crew enters the bank. Because they are dressed as painters, security reacts too late. Without wasting a second, Dalton and his crew throw smoke bombs into the middle of the bank. Panic spreads instantly. Then they pull out their guns. The guards, employees, and customers are all taken hostage. Dalton warns everyone that anyone who moves or tries to stand up will be shot. Once everyone obeys, the entire bank falls under his control. At that moment, a police officer passing by notices smoke coming through the bank doors. He approaches to check what is happening. The moment he tries to open the door, Dalton points a gun outside. He tells the officer this is a bank robbery and that multiple hostages are inside. He warns that if police attempt to enter, the hostages will be killed.
I have got hostages. I'm not kidding, man.
Shocked, the officer immediately alerts the department. Before long, large police units arrive and surround the bank from all sides. Meanwhile, in a luxury office in Manhattan, another man hears the news. His name is Arthur Case. He is the founder of that bank. When his secretary informs him about the robbery, his first question is whether anyone has been hurt. He then asks which branch is under attack. His secretary replies, Branch 3220, Exchange Place. The moment Arthur hears that address, his expression changes completely. He slowly sits down in shock. All he can say is,
Oh dear God.
At another location in the city, Detective Keith Frazier is at the NYPD with his partner, Bill Mitchell. Keith is currently under internal investigation. He is accused of mishandling $150,000. Normally, another officer handles bank robbery cases, but that officer is on vacation, so this case is assigned to Keith. Keith's superior believes this is a good opportunity for him. If he handles this case successfully, he may clear his name and regain the department's trust. Back inside the bank, Dalton lines up all the hostages. He starts collecting their mobile phones and car keys one by one. Everyone hands over their belongings. Everyone except the bank manager, Peter. Peter claims he does not have his phone. He says he forgot it at home. Dalton calmly warns him, if he is hiding a phone, this is the best time to admit it. He should not force Dalton to find it himself. Still, Peter sticks to his story. Dalton says nothing. Instead, he checks the phones they already collected. On one employee's phone, he finds Peter's number saved on speed dial. Dalton calls it. Seconds later, a phone starts ringing inside an office behind Peter. Peter's lie is exposed. Terrified, he immediately starts begging for forgiveness. Dalton quietly walks into that office. Through the glass window, he appears to be talking to himself. A few moments later, he suddenly comes out. He grabs Peter and drags him into the office. Soon, Peter's screams are heard from inside. The other hostages become even more terrified. One employee who had secretly hidden a car key immediately hands it over. Then a small child standing beside his father asks an innocent question. Should he hand over his game console too? Dalton looks at him and says he can keep it.
Keep it.
I need all of you to strip down to your underwear. Now.
After this, Dalton orders everyone to remove their clothes. He gives each hostage a gray painter's suit, a white mask, and a cloth to cover their eyes. Soon, all the hostages are dressed the same way. Dalton and his crew also change out of their white painter uniforms and switch into identical gray suits. Now the robbers and hostages all look exactly alike. From the officer's earlier report, police understand that the man issuing orders is likely the leader of the group. They also know he is carrying a revolver, but they still have no idea how many robbers are inside. Keith then meets Captain Darius, who had been managing the operation until then. Darius is clearly unhappy about detectives taking over the case. Still, Keith officially takes control. He makes one thing very clear. No one enters the bank without his approval, and every decision must go through him. Inside the bank, one of the hostages is an elderly man with a heart condition. After learning this, Dalton allows him to leave. Police quickly take custody of him and question him about the situation inside. The old man says there appear to be around 4 robbers. He also says the robbers warned that if anyone came too close to the bank, 2 hostages would be killed. He reveals something else. The robbers never used real names with each other. Instead, they used names like Steve, Stevie, and Stavo. Back inside, Dalton and his crew begin checking different parts of the bank. Interestingly, they show no interest in the money stored there. Eventually, they reach a storage room. The moment Dalton sees it, he looks around with satisfaction. He simply says one word.
Beautiful.
Meanwhile, Arthur Case reaches out to someone for help. Her name is Madeline White. She is a powerful broker with deep connections to influential people across the city. Arthur meets Madeline in person and tells her something important. At the same branch under attack, he owns a safe deposit box numbered 392. He says no one must see what is inside. Not the robbers, not even the police. Madeline asks what is in the box. Arthur says its contents will not directly harm anyone, but if they are exposed, he will be forced to answer some very uncomfortable questions. In the end, Madeline agrees to handle the matter. She then approaches the mayor. Using the mayor's influence, Madeline arranges a meeting with Detective Keith Frazier. She tells Keith that she wants access to negotiate directly with the robbers. In return, she offers to make Keith's internal investigation disappear. She even promises him a promotion. At the same time, she makes it clear that refusing could make his situation much worse. Eventually, Keith agrees. Meanwhile, police still have no clear idea what is happening inside the bank. They try calling repeatedly, but no one answers. They review the CCTV footage again. The footage shows Dalton entering alone before the robbery began and disabling all the cameras. Because the cameras went blind before the robbery started, there is a 2-minute gap. During those missing 2 minutes, police cannot tell who entered or left the bank. They also cannot rule out another possibility. Some of the robbers may have already been inside the bank.
Did you rob the bank? Steve, that's your name, Steve?
Stevie?
Steve-O? How much are they going to pay you?
A while later, the robbers release another hostage. This time, it is Vikram, one of the bank employees. But police panic when they see a large box hanging around his neck. They fear it is a bomb. After examining it carefully, they realize it contains the robbers' demands. The demands are clear. Before 9 p.m., police must provide 2 buses and a jet aircraft. If they fail, the robbers will kill 1 hostage every hour on camera. They also claim bombs have been planted throughout the bank, and if anyone approaches, those bombs will be detonated. Later, Dalton asks for food for the hostages. Police see this as an opportunity. They decide to hide transmitters inside pizza boxes. Their logic is simple. Since everyone will gather together to eat pizza, the transmitters may capture the robbers' conversations. But the plan fails. The transmitters do pick up voices. However, the language being spoken is unfamiliar to everyone. With help from a bystander, police identify it as Albanian. But there is another problem. The man cannot actually speak Albanian. So police bring in his Albanian ex-wife. To convince her to help, they promise to clear all of her unpaid traffic tickets. She listens to the audio. Then she suddenly starts laughing. She explains that this is not a conversation between robbers. It is just a recording of a speech by a former Albanian president. That is when Keith realizes the truth. The robbers had already predicted the police would hide transmitters in the pizza boxes. Inside the bank, The robbers are busy digging in the storage room Dalton had chosen earlier. They are trying to reach the sewage pipe below. Later, Dalton and Stevie enter the bank vault. There, they locate safe deposit box number 392. They take it out and open it. Inside are several small black pouches, a ring box, and some documents. Dalton takes the documents and keeps them with him. Throughout this, we also see hostages being moved between different rooms. At one point, Stevie even sits among the hostages, pretending to be one of them. In another moment, one hostage removes his mask and starts shouting. Dalton immediately drags him into another room and beats him. As all this is happening, the deadline for the buses and jet is getting closer. During another phone call, Dalton reminds Keith about the consequences of any delay. Keith asks for more time to arrange the plane. Dalton refuses to make it easy. He says Keith will get more time only if he answers a riddle correctly. Otherwise, one hostage will die.
Which weighs more? All the trains that pass through Grand Central Station in a year, or the trees cut down to print all U.S. currency in circulation? It's a trick question.
Dalton's question completely confuses everyone. He asks which weighs more, all the trains passing through Grand Central in 1 year, or all the trees cut down to print every currency note in America. Mitchell is the first to understand the trick. The Grand Central Dalton mentioned is actually a post office. The railway station is officially called Grand Central Terminal. That means no trains pass through Grand Central, so that weight is 0. Captain Darius then explains the second part. U.S. currency is not made from regular paper. It is made from a mix of cotton and linen. So no trees are cut to print currency notes. That means both weights are 0. The answer is equal. Keith gives Dalton the correct answer. Satisfied, Dalton says sandwiches will be enough this time and ends the call. That buys the police a little more time. During this time, Keith creates an opportunity for Madeline to enter the bank. She meets Dalton face to face. Madeline offers him a huge amount of money and tries to convince him to surrender. She tells him things will be much easier if he gives up. But Dalton shows no interest. Instead, he asks why she is really there and who sent her. Madeline avoids giving a direct answer. That is when Dalton pulls out the documents he took from the safe deposit box. He starts telling a story. It is about a man who became wealthy during World War II by doing business with the Nazis. At first, it sounds like a random story, but slowly, Madeline realizes Dalton is talking about Arthur Case. The documents clearly prove Arthur had dealings with the Nazi regime. If these documents become public, Arthur's reputation would be destroyed. Not just his reputation, his entire legacy would collapse. Dalton tells Madeline these documents are his insurance policy. If he gets caught, Arthur will be forced to use his influence to get him out. Otherwise, those documents will become public. Madeline quickly understands something. Even without seeing Dalton's full plan, everything so far suggests he may actually escape. She leaves after making sure the documents will not be shown to anyone else. Outside, Keith asks what happened inside, but Madeline refuses to say anything. As Keith waits for Dalton's next call, something becomes clear to him. Until now, the police have been the ones constantly asking for more time. But Keith realizes that is backwards. Dalton and his crew are the ones deliberately wasting time. The demand for a jet aircraft suddenly makes no sense. No police department has ever actually given robbers a plane in a hostage situation. Someone as smart and prepared as Dalton would know that. Then Keith thinks about the pizza transmitter. When Dalton found it, he did not destroy it. Instead, he played fake Albanian audio. That forced police to waste even more time trying to decode it. Keith now realizes the truth. Every move Dalton has made was designed to stall. To confirm his suspicion, Keith calls Dalton. He says the plane is ready. But before anything else, he wants to come inside and verify that all hostages are safe. Dalton immediately understands that Keith has figured things out. After thinking for a moment, he agrees to meet. Keith enters the bank. Dalton walks him through several rooms and shows him the hostages. In the final room, Keith sees a few hostages with their masks removed. They look injured. As the two walk toward the exit, their conversation becomes surprisingly casual. At one point, Keith jokingly tells Dalton that since things are going so smoothly, they should step outside and grab coffee from the shop across the street. Dalton calmly replies that his work is not finished yet. He says once everything is complete, he will walk out through the bank's front door himself.
I'll tell you what, I would not get too comfortable in here if I were you.
No, I got the cable guy coming on Wednesday.
Why don't you just walk out the door?
I will. I'm gonna walk out of that door when I'm good and ready.
The conversation then shifts to Keith's personal life. They even joke about Keith delaying marriage because of money problems. As they near the exit, Keith offers Dalton a handshake. Dalton accepts, but in the very next second, Keith suddenly grabs Dalton and pulls him down the steps. He desperately tries to rip off Dalton's mask. Before he succeeds, one of the robbers rushes in and points a gun at Keith, but they do not shoot. Dalton only says one thing: Keith has crossed the line. After coming out, Keith is certain of one thing: these are not ordinary bank robbers. This is an extremely intelligent crew that predicts every police move. Earlier, Dalton had hinted at something important. As long as they had not killed any hostages, police legally could not storm the bank with deadly force. That is exactly why Keith provoked him inside. He wanted to test how dangerous Dalton really was. It was a major risk, and Keith had put his own life on the line. A short while later, Dalton contacts the police again. He says Keith crossed the line and now must pay the price. Then Dalton tells them to look at the second-floor window of the bank. Everything changes after that. Keith's superiors believe his reckless move has made the situation much worse. Not long after, Keith is removed from the case. Control of the operation returns to Captain Darius. Since a hostage has now been killed, Darius believes waiting is no longer an option. But there is a major problem. Everyone inside the bank is wearing the same outfit. No one can tell who is a hostage and who is a robber. Because of that, they decide to use rubber bullets instead of live rounds. While preparations are underway, Keith is speaking with the same officer who first spotted the robbery. During their conversation, the officer casually says something. "You always have to be careful what you say. You never know who might be listening." That instantly triggers something in Keith's mind. He suddenly remembers the box hanging from Vikram's neck, the same box police recovered earlier. After checking it carefully, Keith discovers a hidden transmitter inside. He immediately realizes what happened. The robbers had been listening to police conversations the entire time. Keith quickly tries to warn Captain Darius and his team, but Darius ignores the warning and pushes ahead with the operation. Inside the bank, Dalton already knows the police are about to storm in, but instead of panicking, he looks completely calm, almost as if everything is going exactly according to plan. After confirming everything is ready, Dalton throws smoke bombs. He then orders the hostages to run toward the front entrance. At the same time, his three partners discard their weapons and blend in with the fleeing hostages. Just as police prepare to move in, the bank's front doors suddenly open. In the next moment, a large crowd rushes out. At first, police open fire with rubber bullets, but soon Captain Darius realizes everyone running out is unarmed. He immediately orders his men to stop firing. When police finally enter the bank, Dalton and his crew are nowhere to be found. Since there is no way to identify the robbers, everyone who came out is taken into custody. Police record all their details. Then they begin loading them into buses for questioning. During the investigation inside the bank, police make several shocking discoveries. First, not a single dollar is missing from the bank vault. Second, all the guns used by the robbers turn out to be toy guns. Then comes an even bigger discovery. Inside a bathroom, police find fake blood packs like the ones used in movie shoots. The moment Keith sees that, he understands something important. The hostage shooting shown earlier in front of the cameras was completely staged. Keith now faces another major problem. The robbers may have escaped along with the hostages, but there is no reliable way to identify them. Still, Keith is certain about one thing. Dalton is not among the hostages. There are two reasons for that. First, the revolver Dalton pointed at the officer at the start of the robbery was never found inside the bank. Second, Keith had spoken to Dalton face to face. He had a rough idea of his voice, body structure, and physical features. No one in custody matched him. Another thing keeps bothering Keith. Earlier, released hostages mentioned hearing digging and drilling sounds inside the bank, but police found no clear evidence of that. Back at the department, Keith begins interrogating the hostages one by one. That is when Dalton's real strategy becomes clear. By making everyone wear identical suits and masks, Dalton successfully mixed his crew with the hostages. That allowed them to move in and out of different groups whenever needed. Remember the hostage from earlier who removed his mask and caused a scene? Everyone believed Dalton dragged him away and beat him. But in reality, that man was one of Dalton's own crew members. The whole thing was staged to gain the trust of the real hostages. The same trick applies to Dalton's other partners. Stevie was seen among the hostages multiple times. Even in the final room Keith visited inside the bank, one of Dalton's crew members was posing as a hostage. Because of this, many real hostages later identified these robbers as fellow hostages. Whenever Keith suspected someone, another hostage would insist that person had been with them from the beginning. so police had no evidence to prove anyone was part of the robbery. At the end of it all, no one had been killed, no money had been stolen, and almost no useful evidence was found. Because of that, the department wants to close the case. But Keith still has one unanswered question. Where is Dalton? Even when everyone else is ready to move on, Keith continues investigating. While checking bank records, he notices something strange. Safe deposit box 392 does not officially exist in the bank's records. That immediately raises more suspicion. Meanwhile, Madeline meets Arthur again. She warns him that the robbers now possess the documents from the safe deposit box. She says they could use them against him in the future. During their conversation, she directly questions Arthur about his Nazi connections during World War II. Arthur finally admits the truth. As a young man, he was obsessed with success. He was willing to do anything to achieve it, even terrible things. He admits he made many immoral choices, and he says the guilt has never fully left him. But Madeline is focused on something else. She is convinced the robbers did not risk everything just for old documents. She believes there must have been valuables inside that locker. Arthur then reveals the truth. The locker contained more than documents. It also held a priceless Cartier ring. The ring belonged to the wife of a Jewish banker who was once Arthur's friend. But when Arthur realized he could profit from betraying him, he showed no hesitation. He handed his friend and his family over to the Nazis. After they were sent to the camps, their valuable diamond collection ended up in Arthur's hands. At this point, the story returns to the scene from the beginning. Dalton is still inside that narrow hidden room, and now he is preparing to leave. He also has Arthur's diamonds with him. Now we understand why Dalton was pleased when he first saw that storage room. Inside that room, he and his crew had built a fake wall. From outside, it looked like a normal wall, but behind it was enough space for one person to hide. The hole they dug earlier for access to the sewage pipe was also inside that room. That was simply for Dalton's bathroom needs. Dalton had hidden inside the bank the entire time. He stayed there for a full week. Only after everything became quiet did he finally come out. But at that exact time, Keith returns to the bank. Dalton learns this through his partners outside. Even then, he does not panic. He does not run either. Instead, he calmly walks forward, straight toward Keith. For a brief moment, the two even bump into each other. And just like that, Dalton walks out through the bank's front door, exactly as he promised. At the same time, Keith opens the locker. Inside, he finds the Cartier ring. There is also a small note. Dalton left it as a clue that points toward the ring's dark history. Outside the bank, Dalton reunites with his crew. Then another important truth is revealed. There were not just 4 robbers. A 5th person had been part of the plan from the beginning. He had been posing as a hostage the entire time. He was a Jewish professor. With his help, Dalton had learned about Arthur's Nazi connections and hidden past. Later, Keith visits Arthur in person. He places the Cartier ring in front of him. Then he makes one thing clear. He will uncover the truth behind all of this. After that, Keith meets Madeline. He hands her the contact information of a government division that investigates war crimes. It is his way of telling her that he now knows Arthur's secret too. That night, Keith returns home. As he reaches into his coat pocket, he notices something inside. He pulls it out. It is a diamond. At that exact moment, Keith remembers bumping into someone at the bank. He instantly realizes the truth. The man who walked right past him was Dalton. The movie never clearly explains why Dalton gave Keith the diamond. Maybe it was proof that he truly walked out through the front door. Or maybe it was a gift. Dalton remembered Keith joking about postponing marriage because of money problems. Perhaps this was his strange way of helping. After outsmarting the entire police force, Dalton disappears without a trace. And that is where the movie ends. Thanks for watching. Until the next video.
Hasta la vista, baby.